Hey all, welcome to the FlashQuotes podcast, the number one podcast for mobile event businesses. I'm joined today live in person with my friends,
A rare treat.
FlashQuotes co-founders Zach and Justin. Hey guys.
Hello.
Okay. Good to be here.
We've been together today, planning and plotting for 2020. We have lots of good stuff in store. A live event, perhaps, that you'll have to stay tuned to learn more about.
Yeah, more coming there, but it's going to be awesome. We also have Emily, our producer extraordinaire, here with us. I've had many people who say, hey, I love when you guys do a pod together, but so far it sounds like trash every single time. So thank you for your honest feedback. I trust our customers to be honest as usual, and I'm sure this will sound a lot better. For today, we are going to harken back to one of our best episodes, episode 1 actually, where we explore the 5 levels of catering as created by the one and only Justin Goodhart. It's a great way to identify where you are on your journey of becoming an amazing mobile event business. And we're going to kind of couch it in a view of saying, for each level, what are some of the primary bottlenecks that you can hit along the way? What are the things you're really going to come up against that you have to be conscientious of and take a lot of effort to push to get to the next level? So just to lay them out for you really quickly, number 1 is side hustle. You're probably working another job. You're doing this on nights and weekends. You have a vision to go full-time on it, but you're still side hustling in level 1. Level 2, you're a solopreneur. Congratulations. You've quit your day job. You're actually able to do this full on, which is an incredible feat, but you have vision to take it to the next level because you're doing literally everything right now. Number 3, you're a small team. So you've actually brought on maybe some baristas, some mobile bar folks. Maybe you have somebody helping you with some sales. You're just a small little organization. Number 4, you are now, what did we write? The top dog in your city. Who does not want to be the top dog? You're the top dog in your city. You are number 1 on Google when people are searching for your business in your area. You're really killing it. And then number 5, the golden milestone where you'll finally be happy in life.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. You probably
You'll
won't
be more stressed than ever.
You're a multi-city business and you are operating as a top dog in many cities. So we're going to look at those. And we're going to look at the bottlenecks along the way. With that big preamble, where do we want to go? Zach, do you have some insights and thoughts on level 1? You're just getting started as a side hustle and what you're going to run into.
Yeah. So if you're in the side hustle stage of this business, we know from talking to people, I think the biggest growth bottleneck that you've run into is just getting found, just getting booked, finding your first clients, kind of getting off the ground, getting your name out there, making sure that people who are having events know that you exist and that you could come provide an experience at their event. So the things that you need to think about are your website. How are you going to start to try and rank in Google search results to get some organic traffic to your website and to get discovered? And then how are you going to get your first few bookings? They're probably not going to, I can tell you from hearing many stories on this podcast, they're not going to fall in your lap. You're going to have to really scrap and grind probably to get your first few, just to get practice, get reps, get your name out there, start getting a couple reviews on your Google business profile. So in side hustle mode, you're really just thinking about how can I get found? So I'm wondering if either of you have any stories that stick out to you from previous episodes of like creative, scrappy ways that people landed their first booking or kind of got their business off the ground.
I mean, a lot of these businesses that just start, they do tap into their local networks. One in particular, we haven't yet had him on the podcast. We will at some point, but they're really deeply entrenched in the music industry, like professional musician, touring musician, toured with a lot of big names, and they're kind of carving out a niche for themselves there, and they end up serving, more touring groups and things like that. So, I know we've had him on, Noah from Reunion Coffee. He was in real estate, and some of his first events kind of came from other realtors who maybe hired him for open houses. And, maybe you're really involved in your church, and maybe your church hires you. So in that kind of side hustle or stage 1, tapping into your local networks can be really key. You can also, maybe some photographers or some event planners in your city. those could be potential good sources of exposure. And I know I rag on like Instagram all the time for not really getting many coffee catering bookings, or not generally being an amazing acquisition channel. I will say people who take Instagram seriously they have better luck with the private events. So yeah, you can get brides and people who are looking, because that's where almost like end customers hang out, right? If you were like a direct to consumer e-commerce brand, those sorts of brands do well, or can do really well, on Instagram and social media. And it's almost the same thing being true with catering, where like if you're trying to sell your catering service to private event people and brides and things like that, you might actually do okay on Instagram for a while. But I feel like I do tend to see people who want to then start selling to the higher ticket corporate folks, like they're usually looking on Google or Bing, God forbid.
One cool thing for this level that's really interesting for me is my brother and sister-in-law have started a new coffee catering company in Philadelphia. Shout out to Vista Coffee. And they are literally right in the beginning stages, like have not actually booked their first event. And so they're trying to deal with, wow, I bought all this stuff, I'm ready to go, I've got the skill set. It's the whole build it and they will still not come. You have to find them, right? And so it's like, dang, I'm on the top of page 2 on Google. I might as well just be dead, like in the ground, like I'm worthless. How do I hustle and get this up? I think something that they've done that I will come to fruition, I'm believing for them, is Zion, his wife, works at Elixir Coffee there in Philly, and just straight up, like through that relationship and good connections and asking for support, is able to dig into that network and kind of capture like natural lead flow, right? They're not interested in the coffee catering mobile space. And so they've got somebody who works for them, who's going after something and hustling. And I think the thing as a solopreneur you really have to do is, go ask for help. Put it out there that you're doing this, because there's this idea that when the student is ready, the master appears, right? When you're ready to go, when you're ready to make this serious business, things start happening. They just kind of pop like popcorn. It's awesome. And you need to expose yourself to that magic by putting it out there. Like, hey, I'm going for this. I'm a business owner. I'm declaring that I want to go full-time on this. This is my deadline to make that happen. And I think you might be surprised like how many opportunities.
That's a great one. And it reminds me of another hack that I think is underutilized. So if you're in phase 1, listen up. You need to find a tangential service business that already has customers that may get asked for whatever you do for coffee, but doesn't do it. That's an untapped reservoir for a lot of people that is just hanging out there, right? If you're a coffee caterer, make friends with someone who owns a mobile bar cart. Make friends with someone who owns a mobile, pastry or dessert cart, because those people are getting leads that are asking for coffee and they don't do it, and they're turning them down or saying, I can't do that for you. So if you show up as a solution to them and add value to them, like put that out in the universe, and you may be surprised how often that might help you out, especially in the early days.
So one final thing before we move on to the next phase, stage 2, is just with side hustle, it's really challenging to be there, because you're not really making money yet. And so it's not your main thing. It can't be your main thing because it's not yet a very income producing channel for you. And so I think the biggest thing is that you still have your day job and all your other stresses and all the other things weighing on you that are kind of tearing you away from really going all in. And that's fine and that's appropriate, because everybody's got to pay their bills and everybody's got to make a living. But side hustle phase 1 is definitely challenging. And the sooner you can get to cover your costs, whatever that number is, like I feel like the people who are most successful here in these early days, like they have their number. They know like, okay, I need to be making $5,000 a month, whatever it is. This is how much I need to make to cover my costs, and then I'm going to quit my job. And when you do that, when you responsibly, but when you quit your job, but do it responsibly, where you have a moderate level of income from side hustle, that's when the huge unlock begins, because now you have an extra 40 hours in your week. You're now kind of stage 2 solopreneur, and you can really pour all of that energy into one thing. And I've said this is not an original quote. I think it's like Alex Hormozy, but it's like he said every business is like a Horcrux, which is like a Harry Potter reference, where it's like every business has like a part of your soul, or more like every priority or every income or time commitment in your life almost like has a piece of your soul. And when you're split apart like that and you can't go all in on the thing that you're hoping to pursue, I mean, it takes up so much psychological bandwidth as well as just, of course, time in your day. And so when you can finally make enough to responsibly quit and go all in to solopreneur, that is like, honestly, probably for me, looking back now, maybe one of the coolest, funnest parts of the journey. It's just so filled with learning. And so I'll let one of you jump in on solopreneur.
Nice. Yeah, and I think another thing that we've noticed in that same vein is, especially with certain businesses, coffee catering being one of them, the biggest event time is generally weekdays in the mornings, right? And so
yes,
if you're working a full-time job 9 to 5, it's going to conflict naturally with that, right? And so you might expose yourself to a huge amount of new bookings that you might have blocked off previously. Cool. So that is side hustle life and what you need to watch out for there. Next in our tier is solopreneur. So you have made that leap. You've hit your number. You're full-time on this. You've got a whole bunch of space opened up to work events, do sales, do operations, but it's still you. It's a one-person show, and you're going to inevitably hit some roadblocks along the way. When you made that transition, Justin, you talked about how sweet it was, but what sort of roadblocks, or what are we calling them?
Bottlenecks.
Bottlenecks.
Road bottlenecks.
Road bottlenecks. What sort of bottlenecks kind of came to the fore in that transition that were new to you?
Oh man, this was a long time ago for me now. I was honestly, my biggest problem was just kind of aimless for a long time, I think. And I think before a lot of the modern resources came out regarding coffee catering or just event businesses in general, a lot of people were aimless. They didn't know what was possible, and they're just kind of chilling. Yeah, making a few $1,000 a week or a month, and like that's kind of better than I thought. And I'm just kind of chilling. I mean, for me, my journey I feel like was very roundabout, because I was just dinking around like for years almost, not really knowing the path until 2021 when I met my business mentor. So my journey, I don't know if it's a good proxy, at least as it relates to solopreneur in this regard, because I stayed as solopreneur for a long time. Like I had a very, very extended solopreneur phase, which I don't think is necessary. And a big piece of that was just me wandering aimlessly for years. Totally unnecessary if you have clarity on your path and where you want to take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we think about it more than zooming out to just our customers or people we talk to on a regular basis, it may be that you kind of run into your bottleneck for this phase. Maybe we'll see a theme where it's like the thing you were able to do really well in the prior phase, and you realize like, wow, I can't keep that up, right? It's not scaling to this next thing. And so as we were thinking about it, another bottleneck for this phase as a solopreneur is your sales process and sales communication, right? You know that you've got these leads coming in. You need to close them. You need to get them booked, because that's going to get you the events that are going to be here next week, the week after that, a month later. But then you're looking at your calendar and you're like, crap, I got to wake up at 5 a.m. to do the event that's tomorrow. And if I don't do the event that's tomorrow, well, then I'm going to have really upset customers. My Google reviews are going to tank, and I'm not going to get the leads to get me the events next month, right? And so you run into this one-person show pain point of, how do I do this sales communication? And we were talking about, before we jumped off on the call here, going back to my brother, like, hey, every lead he gets right now is precious. It is that one golden lead, which we've talked about. Treat it like it's gold. And your sales communication, you can afford to have a crazy good sales communication process there. But all of a sudden you have 10, 20, 30 leads flowing in, and you're doing a back-to-back event in a day. That's a bottleneck, people.
So here, picture this. Here's a generalized story based on 3 or 4 true stories that I think we've heard on the podcast, but we'll generalize it to protect the innocent. So see if this sounds familiar if you're in a solopreneur state right now. You you get a lead this week. You're really excited. It's a small event. Maybe it's a baby shower. It's kind of bottom dollar for you. It's $600, $700, but you'll take every lead you can get. Right now, you're in solopreneur mode. You go, you serve. It's a big day. You got to go set up your stuff. You do it. You finish up. You run some errands. You come home, and you see that while that morning, while you were at the event pouring coffees or serving drinks or whatever, you got a lead for a $10,000 event. It hit your inbox at 8 a.m., like right as you were pulling out of your driveway and you didn't have time to look at it. So you're scrambling like, holy cow, this is amazing. And you pull together the quote and the proposal and you call them up, and it turns out, oh, they already booked someone while you were serving. So that is the pain of, I think, solopreneurs when they have to do everything. They have to be the hands in the business and the people showing up, providing the service, but also having this like part-time job of being a salesperson and providing immediate quotes and proposals and getting on the phone and closing. That's almost more important in some ways for the growth of your business so that you can begin to hire and expand and things like that. But it takes a back seat to all of the events that you're actually serving. And so you're going to lose a lot of bookings because of that. So the bottleneck here, like we're saying, is sales process, and how can you still give an amazing experience and close a high percentage of your leads, have a really high booking rate while you're not behind your desk all day. So I'm teeing you up with a softball here, Justin, but what's the best way to solve that problem?
No, I mean, yeah. And before I answer that, I want to just highlight that this phase there's so much learning happening. And when you first enter stage 2, the solopreneur stage, like there's probably never a time in your company where your customers are going to get treated better, because you do everything. You know everything about them. You've taken the inquiry, booked them in, served the event, followed up with them. So when people are in the beginning of the solopreneur stage, that's probably the best your customers are ever going to be treated. By the end of stage 2, it's probably the worst they're going to be treated because you're going to be burnt out and you aren't responsive. You aren't getting back to them. And yeah, that's where, to Zach's softball pitch on this one, like we hear from folks who are, kind of end of solopreneur into stage 3 that like when they switch to FlashQuotes, they're able to, we've heard a bunch of stories here too. People went from like an average of sending out a quote in 15 minutes, which is fast. Actually, these people are very fast. That was a record. Their record time was like 15 minutes. Now they get it down to like 2 minutes. They can send out a quote. They were already fast. They already knew the importance of it. For the more average coffee caterer, it goes from, for those of you who've planned a wedding or planned events, Zach, when you planned your wedding and you were inquiring with all your vendors, what was the post form submission? What did they say about how long it would take them to get back to you?
I mean, if they said anything, sometimes it would be like days or like longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's common to be like, oh yeah, like thanks. Well, a team member will reach out in 24 to 48 hours, and it's like, okay, well, fingers crossed that actually happens. Whereas, with FlashQuotes, you can send that out. Either you can instant quote or you can send it out in a matter of minutes. You could stop. I'm in my driveway, about to go to the event. Pause, 30 seconds. Boom, 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 boom. Sent. And also we're going to automatically follow up with you.
If you have to log into Canva on a desktop to send a quote, you need to re-examine your process. You need to be able to do it from your phone wherever you are. And it still needs to look beautiful and all those things, but that's why you need tooling that can allow you to send a beautiful, high converting proposal without having to be at a desk to do it, especially in solopreneur phase. That's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, I should have clarified, the beginning of solopreneur phase are the golden years. It's so fun. You're learning so much. Your hands are in everything. Your clients love you. Guests you serve love you. And then you just start getting ripped apart by the sales and operations, and they just completely shred you. It's like a medieval torture device. Sales over here, operations over here. You're in the middle, and it's just getting cranked tighter and tighter. Yeah, that's painful. It doesn't end well. And so until then you have a team or at least some help, it's going to continue going that way. Anything else on solopreneur before we move to level 3?
No, so just to recap, you need to find a tool, and in case it wasn't obvious, FlashQuotes is the tool. You're not going to find anything else that's quite like it, but you need to find a tool that allows you to send proposals within a few minutes from wherever you are, from whatever you're doing, and you need a tool that can automatically follow up and nudge those leads to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks or getting forgotten about? Based on your experience, Justin, how many times should people be following up with their leads to close them?
I mean, 5 to 7 minimum. And the sooner that happens, the sooner you can get them to engage right after. Yeah, I'd say you want people to follow up 5 to 7 times. And the sooner it happens and the sooner you can get them to engage, the better that is. And just, I have a story as well regarding also like the client comfort and client anxiety in this stage. And as people move into stage 3, we're having here at the end of this week, this is, if you're watching this not live or not when it's recently released, we're in October, late October of 2025. I'm doing a warehouse party for friends and family, and I'm hiring a bartender for it, and I'm excited to have them, but it's kind of been a little anxiety inducing. Like, the whole inquiry process. First of all, kudos to him because he called me, he texted me, which was awesome. But it's clear that it's just him who does all the sales. And
this poor guy, he has no idea who he's talking to.
I know. I'm going to it's okay. I'll be gentle on him, but I've actually thought about because I've legit thought about sending him an event brief. Like, bro, this is what you need to service this event. Just, it's all here, like all the parking loading, because all he did was he just sent over the contract and it's like this kind of janky Word doc. I hope you never listen to this, Chris. But if you do,
boy, do we have a tool for you.
He just sent me over this Word doc, which was the contract, and I signed it. And but I don't know what's included. Maybe I saw some photos. I don't know what's included. I don't know what I have to provide. As one of the largest coffee caterers in the U.S., I know the information caterers need to ask. He's asked me none of it. I'm worried for him. How he doesn't even have the event address yet, and it's in 2-3 days. And so, yeah, these are the sorts of problems without a good system, without something like FlashQuotes. You might be giving your customers that anxiety of I paid some money and I signed some stuff, but I don't know, haven't heard from him yet. Yeah, I'm a little bit anxious about this bartender, but I wish that he had given me the comfort that really FlashQuotes can give to your end customers with the confirmations and the reminders and the thoroughness and completeness of the system. This was just such a fresh reminder for me of why we're doing what we're doing, so that caterers can have an amazing experience. Solopreneurs, really all levels of coffee caterers can have that experience, and also the end customers who book. So
yeah, give a professional experience, right? Just show up in a really polished way.
Yeah, did we mention that this podcast is supported in full by FlashQuotes? If you want to host and serve at Justin's next Halloween party without giving him ulcers, hit us up. hello@flashquotes.com. Happy to chat and hang out. All right, with that, small team, level 3. You're no longer a solopreneur. You've hired on some folks either to maybe work your events, help there, or to help with your business. I think one thing that we've seen there over and over again, and you had the same experience, Justin, is you do have that pull between operations and sales. You said it was a medieval torture device. The best way to avoid the torture is to get on one side or the other and find your complement to help with the other one. And if you do have any proclivity towards sales, that's generally one of the harder ones. So use your sales expertise, maybe find somebody who can help operationally or vice versa, wherever your kind of unique skill set is. But you've got a small team now, and you've figured out how to dial in your sales process. Of course, you're well beyond getting found and those pain points, and you're starting to hit kind of the next major set of obstacles for a small team. What are you running up against, Zachary?
So for small team, I think the challenge becomes how to hire and how to delegate, how to build the small team, right? And how to make sure that you have the right people doing the right jobs and what those jobs are. There's a couple subtopics I think we could talk about here, like how to find your staff. Probably your first hire is going to be someone to do the event service for you, so that you can be I think your goal at this phase should be that you're working on the business and not in the business as kind of your end state. So build up your people and your team around you so that the entire service that you offer can happen without you ever being a part of it, so that your full-time job as the business owner becomes growing the business, getting more, which usually looks something like focusing on sales and marketing and bringing in more leads and bookings and figuring out your pricing finally and your packaging and your warehouse and all this other stuff that makes it happen without having to actually show up and make drinks at events. So that's the big challenge. And I think also a sub challenge is delegation and how to figure out like what you can let go of and when it's appropriate to let go of it. We talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who struggle with that and they feel overwhelmed and burned out and like they're doing a million things. So how to get past that so that you can really scale your business. So maybe we start on the hiring topic though, Justin. I know you have thoughts here. We've talked a lot about it on the podcast, but maybe you can just recap for people. How do you find that first person to serve events? How do you get more of them? And how do you kind of build up your team to support you as you're in this phase?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm trying to think even who was the first person who did this role for Goodheart. Well, the one that stands out is someone who I wanted to do, like I was getting pulled apart by sales and operations. And I guess the first thing I did was like, I don't want to be pulled apart anymore. I'm going to hire this person to be pulled apart on my behalf. And they were. And yeah, like then the stress for them, like I didn't talk about, I messed up incentives. If you didn't listen to the last episode on kind of perverse incentives and the Cobra effect, go listen to that podcast episode. I messed up incentives with him, and I didn't structure the role correctly because again, it was just like copy and paste what I had been doing, which was, both sales and operations, and I was getting pulled apart by both. And so bad incentives, didn't structure the role correctly, and also then didn't do one-on-ones with him. And so then like we started and had an amazing relationship, but then we slowly kind of disconnected and we would go longer and longer without talking, and then woke up one day and he was not happy. It kind of caught me by surprise. And then we had this conversation that went really bad, and then he quit immediately. And so that was like my first attempt at hiring someone. And then I learned that like, okay, this probably can't be the same role. And I know some of the people, I know someone in particular who's been with FlashQuotes, over a year now, who's grown fast and been doing very well, but yeah, brought on his first hire and it did not last long either. I think maybe 3 to 6 months, and then just wasn't the right fit. This can be hard because anytime you're growing and the role you're hiring for doesn't exist yet and you're trying to figure out what it even looks like, that's an extra layer of stress for everyone involved, the person you bring on and for you. And we've had that at FlashQuotes. We just brought on our first customer success person, the first person who's not a co-founder. It's been very much of a learning process to figure out what even is this role. And I think the same is true when you start to build a small team and you're in kind of phase 3 of your business's catering growth. What is the role? What do you actually need? And figuring that out is almost half the battle. And so, yeah, I actually want to hear from you. If you're kind of stage 3 and beyond. Also, we forgot to include talking about roughly like the event count that is often associated with these stages. So side hustle is, I don't remember what we said on the original episode, but something like, 1 to maybe 40 events a year or something like that is often side hustle territory. That's really all you can do if you're working nights or weekends in most cases. Solopreneur, you might be able to get up to like 100, 150-ish, depending if you're alone, or maybe you're doing it with your partner, which is pretty common in the coffee catering industry. So I guess that'd be more like a couplepreneur or something. That's usually around the 150 mark maybe. And then we see stage 3, the small teams, they often might get up to like 200-300 plus events per year and start to feel some of these challenges and pain points. Yeah, but if you are in this stage, or you've kind of tried to hire someone for a role, kind of the second in command, and it's gone well, drop us a comment. If it's gone poorly, drop us 2 comments.
I want to ask you about, so that's an interesting story that you shared. I want to go back to that, like about your kind of failed hire, or that role that didn't work out. Do you think the mistake there was that you were trying to hire like the thing that you didn't want to do and didn't want to think about it anymore, and kind of hiring out of your own pain and preference? Or was it that was the right thing to hire, you just didn't find the right person or set them up for success?
Well, at a certain point, when your company is small, you have to hire someone who has basically two primary characteristics: super hardworking and super adaptable. And he had that. Then as you grow, it's like you actually have to start hiring within somewhat established categories to get people who actually have skills in that area. And it's different personality, and it's like operations people and salespeople have different personalities and different experience, like work experience. And so it's like oil and water at a certain point due to those factors. And so, it's probably only going to be another entrepreneurial business type person who can hold that role. And then also you're not going to be, that's not sustainable long term either. Because when that person leaves, now you just have, it's called key man risk or key person risk. Like, you should not subject your business to that, where one person could rip the rug out or be the cornerstone that makes it all fall.
There's kind of an interesting thing there that we've experienced too with FlashQuotes, where when you're trying to hire a role and you've never like worked in that role in a real job before or anything, you've just you do it the way you do it because you're an entrepreneur and you do a million different things. And so I think people may fall in the trap in this phase of being like, I really need a salesperson. And then when they like hired the salesperson, they're like, okay, so you do the website, you do SEO, you do paid ads, you do sales calls, you try and close things, you do event planning, because that's in your brain what sales is. But that's probably like 5 different jobs for most people. So trying to figure out, how to have someone who's a little bit adaptable and can maybe wear a couple of different hats, but also like have realistic expectations and figure out like what's one repeatable thing that's kind of within one skill set that someone could spend, 40 hours a week working on that would help the business. And then I have to find someone else for the website and someone.
And I think, you mentioned one-on-ones or starting to have one-on-ones as a result of this experience. And the adaptability goes both ways when you're hiring for a role that you don't know, or you're not sure exactly what the role is or even what your business needs specifically. And one-on-ones are an incredible way for you to be adaptable. The biggest mistake people have with one-on-ones is they think it's their meeting as the manager to the employee. It's the complete opposite. The one-on-one is that employee's meeting. Yep. They own it. They should set the agenda. They should be the one talking to you about what's going on in their world. And it's an amazing time for you as the business owner to learn about all the secret knowledge and all the things that are in their heads and the heads of their peers, and know what's going on in your business, right? You should be asking questions like, what are we missing out on in the company? What is something that we aren't doing that if we did do it, it would help us triple our growth this year? What are the things that are sneaky failures that are kind of below the surface that we don't know about, but you for some reason have like an insight on because you're actually boots on the ground, right? And so when you can have those one-on-ones, the reason a lot of people don't want to have them is because they misunderstand them. So you should have a one-on-one weekly, every couple weeks with your team, with your key people. Let them own the meeting, and it will be amazing what you learn and how they feel heard. And that is a fantastic way with new employees, especially to get a good feel for what's going on.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. And that I'd like to say that I learned my lesson from just that one experience where things went bad unexpectedly, but I didn't. It happened again. It happened again with another longtime person where yeah, sure enough, like I think I don't remember what it was. I think I did one-on-ones in some capacity. Maybe they were like monthly or kind of like we did them during busy parts of the year. But the same thing happened again, and I got disconnected from someone I was once very, very close to, just slowly drifted over time. And yeah, it wasn't until until the weekly one-on-ones. The reason weekly, I forget the book written on this as well, but there's a book that's basically like 200 pages of like, you should do weekly one-on-ones, and here's why. One of the reasons weekly is because if you cancel a bi-weekly one-on-one, that means you've talked to them once that month, if you haven't had any other time to interact with them. And so that kind of redundancy and frequency has been key. And it's definitely been better. I'm not saying it'll never happen again, but I do feel like I have a much better sense of where everyone's really at. And this is almost, honestly, we're almost getting to like the one-on-ones is probably a little more for like level 4 and level 5. But I made the mistakes, I think, while I was in level 3 that, as I was trying to hire my second in command. So
There's one thing too that you've talked about, but I think it's worth reiterating, right? We've been talking a lot about probably a pretty big hire. Like this is probably an FTE for your company, kind of a different sort of role. You do, of course, as Zach mentioned, probably some of the first people that are joining you on the journey in some capacity are the people that are helping you in part or in full actually facilitate service at an event. And you've kind of talked about, Justin, how to chunk that out, right? Because it's really scary. You've been solopreneur, you've been providing this world-class experience as the brand, and now you're going to try and pull back from that incrementally. We've hit on it several times, but maybe just kind of talk about briefly how you did that, right? Which parts you started swapping somebody else in, how you did that slowly, but in a permanent way.
Yeah. This is probably, as you're transitioning from solopreneur to small team, how do you, the first barista hires are probably a bigger deal than I don't know. They happen sooner, at least chronologically, first barista hires compared to like the first kind of admin hire for your catering or events business. But yeah, when I was chunking out the on-site event staff, like basically progressing them into working a full event without me being involved at all, it was, I'm going to, of course, just be there for the full event. I'm going to have them shadow me. And then I'm going to set up and be there for service and then let them just kind of break down on their own. Actually, wait, sorry. I think it was, I would just be there for setup and I would let them do the service and I would come break down. Then it was, I'd let them do service and breakdown, but I would still come set up. And then finally progress, the third progression of that for on-site event staff was I'll let them set up, serve, and break down. That definitely helped me because I also needed to build those systems for kind of each segment of that. They are very distinctive elements and have unique skills and knowledge. And so that was kind of how I chunked that out for my on-site event staff as I was progressing from stage 2 to stage 3.
Nice. And one thing when we were talking about this stage and maybe this stage heading into your journey to, top dog in your city was you were referencing the Jenna Jackley episode from Bloom Coffee Cart, which was fantastic. Check it out. But she talked about this process she went through of self-reflection that was really, really cool. And we've since had people come onto the podcast or just talk to us and say, hey, I actually did that. And it was super helpful for me. So can you tell us what that was?
Yeah, Jenna came on the podcast, and you should listen to that episode, like Daniel said, and hear her explain it. But she was in this phase, trying to get to phase 4, feeling like she just didn't have enough hours in the day to still do all the things she needed to do, even though she had a team of baristas and people helping her, and was just working on the business mostly at that point. And so a friend of hers recommended that she do this exercise where she would write down on a sticky note every like task or responsibility or thing that she had to do as the owner of the business. So just every time you do something throughout the week, just write it down on a sticky note. Like, okay, I do this thing. I go shop for milk in the morning. I go stock the fridge. I check for the leads, and then I write the quotes, and then I do this. And she made this long list with a bunch of sticky notes of everything that she was doing, like all the because as the business owner, I think you kind of fill the crevices and you become the duct tape that holds the whole thing together, and you just do all the things that there's no one whose job it is to do that thing, so you do it. But she organized it by, okay, this must be me. This is a business owner core strategic task that's mine. This is something that someone else should be doing, and this is something that someone else could be doing with training. And so her task then was very clear, like, okay, I need to get rid of category 2 and 3 as much as possible. I need to either bring in the people or invest in the training and the materials and the resources and the processes, which we'll probably get into more in the next phase, to make sure that I can slowly delegate these sticky notes to other people in my org and make sure that nothing's going to fall through the cracks. And also just, I think it's a good self-reflection activity to, when you actually look at the list and say, why am I going to like get the milk every morning and put it in the fridge. Like, is that the best use of my time? No. So highly recommend you try that activity and listen to that episode with Jenna if you're feeling overwhelmed as a stage 3 business owner.
Yeah, that's really cool. Another thing that was interesting that came out of that was, hey, there's some sticky notes on here that I could give away, but I really, really want to keep them. And they give me a lot of joy, even though maybe, for ultra scale, I should, technically give it up. I want to own it. I want to own that customer conversation or that sales call. And I thought that was a cool thing too, of just, hey, these are going to enrich me and give me joy. And that's good for me as a holistic person.
That's another great way to do it is you could also stack your sticky notes on what gives me energy and what drains me of energy, and try and get rid of the things that drain you of energy. Find someone, outsource those in some way so that you can bring your best self to work every day and feel really excited about your business. That's a great way to combat burnout as well.
Yeah. We sort of assume that the same things that give us energy will be the same for everyone else and vice versa. But maybe the thing that's draining your energy is the exact thing that somebody would love to do, right? So it's a total win-win if you can do that.
Yeah, I think for me, for my personal psychology, I feel like that's a telltale sign. I like kind of pioneering something, figuring out, troubleshooting, problem solving, and then building a system for it. And I know when it's time for me to move on in most cases, because I get bored. Like, there's no more mystery or like problem solving to do. All right, it's time to also there's no that often means there's no more growth currently for me to have in this one domain, but there is for someone else. So why should I do this thing that is now boring to me if I could pass it off and it could be an enriching growth experience? And now I have more bandwidth to do something that is also an enriching growth experience for me. Do that. That's a good bet.
Nice. So level 4 is, in 3, you journeyed from solopreneur, you have a team. Now that team is really locked in. You're operating at a great level. You figured out hiring and delegation, and you're doing that really well. Now you've used that to supercharge you to really being the dominant player within your geographical region. You're the one that's showing up very high on search results. You're getting a lot of word of mouth. You're getting a lot of recurring business. You got a lot of corporate clients and high-paying customers. You're starting to experience a whole new set of bottlenecks once you hit that point. And as we were thinking about, that really is the systems that you were alluding to, Justin, about, hey, I want to figure out how this works, and then I want to systematize it so that we can do it at this huge volume. Maybe just say, in your mind, how many events you're at when you're there per year, and then maybe we can talk about kind of some of the systems or bottlenecks more specifically that you remember from that phase.
I'll tee up one more thing because I'm curious, Justin. To me, this phase is about I can't fulfill the demand that I know there is for my business. Right? I'm the preeminent operator in my space. We have healthy leads. We have all these things. We're doing a good job, but I can't I haven't figured out how to scale it enough where we can do many events in a single day and people can just come in and out, and there can, we can fulfill as much demand as there come. How do you get past the point where you have to turn down 4 of the 5 Christmas parties that inquire because you just can't figure out how to get that much done? That's to me what characterizes this stage. So maybe talk through that.
Yeah, this stage, some of the things I feel like it often will take 3 to 5 years to hit this. And I think that's true and that's actually on the fast side. If you're slow, this might take 7 to 10 years to get to stage 4. If you're fast and you know how to do it, you still can't shortcut it. It will still probably take 3 to 5 years. And I feel like that's what we see in our other cities as well. We're actually, if I just take Denver or just take one of my cities, we are a level 4 there, but we might be kind of by event count, we're in a much smaller range at some of our other cities. So it does take years to get here or get to level 4 in your city. Let's see. For one, we're events businesses. There's going to be seasonal ups and downs. I think what you start to find is that you get completely booked out on all the major days during the busiest times of the year, and you're turning away inquiries. That's a signal like, okay, we need more service assets, more resources, more mobile bars, more coffee carts, more photo booths, whatever it is. This is where, like, I think this is where we, on our way here, on our way from stage 3 to 4, we built out really robust like training materials and documentation for baristas. We figured out how to find baristas. One thing I don't know if we talked about in the first episode, and we definitely have it in this one, is like we completely tapped out our pool of word of mouth staff, which probably happened in stage 2 or 3, where I did not know how to find more people. And still to this day, most coffee carts I see, they put out an Instagram post of like, hey, we need a barista on this day. We need a barista on this day from this time. And it's all like in stage 2 and 3, you're finding your staff primarily through like word of mouth and people you know, or at least I was. And I completely tapped out my entire word of mouth network. Like if you had ever worked an event for me ever, like I was going to be like a clingy ex who is going to text you like a month later, like, hey, you up? Like, do you want to work this event? like please, we really need someone, like, more like at 5 a.m. in the morning. I say that in jest, but we really we were tapped out. And yeah, so the staffing side was really, really hard. I missed 50 minutes. Okay. So yeah, we were hugely bottlenecked at that staffing piece, having friends of friends and people who really weren't qualified and who didn't care. And they're just like, I could make a random $200-300. Like, yeah, I'll go. And so we start to have service quality issues. And finally, like it was on the way from stage 3 to 4, where we figured out our like barista day of staff pipeline. And now like drop me in any city in the US and we will have an amazing team we could probably like get a team of baristas trained. In 2 weeks, we could have 4 to 6 brand new, amazing baristas fully trained up, ready to go. Any major metro area in the US, drop me in there. We're going to have those baristas in 2 weeks. And we know, we use Indeed. We know we know the questions to ask. We know how to we have very good BS detectors in like how people answer questions, what they say, any discrepancies in what they say and what happens on the day of. And then we have we have training videos, training quizzes, a very established training process. And that was so critical for us as we moved from stage 3 to stage 4, because we just had massive quality discrepancies in staff training. We had massive discrepancies in our equipment, and just like everything had random pieces and nothing was standardized in our equipment or training. And so that was the unlock to move from stage 3 to 4, was standardization of equipment and training, and actually like really building out an incredible pipeline to get people up to speed, finding those people, getting them up to speed so that they could actually deliver a service that wasn't embarrassing / was hopefully really good.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome, man. I think even 4 to 5, right? They're kind of similar in themes. Getting 3 to 4, these systems. 4 to 5 is kind of standardized. What's your playbook? I love the way you talk about it. Like, drop me in any city and I can XXXX, right? I can get 4 to 6 baristas up and running in 2 weeks. I can get a warehouse contract. I know how to paper it. I know what to look for. I can get listed on Google Ads in organic search results, page 1 in, a couple months in advance. So I'm ready to rock. You've got this whole ability to execute, a repeatability there that is unbelievable. And really, especially if you were slower to get to 4, slower to become the big dog in your city, you may have never thought like, what did I do to actually get here, right? Yeah. And so you need to reflect and say, okay, if I want to go somewhere else and do this again, I can't just think of it as magic that strikes once. I got to be able to repeat it. And so you have to think deeply, and your brain is like wired perfectly for this. Think deeply about what are the standards, what are the procedures, what are the playbooks that I'm going to execute to do this again and again and again.
Yeah. Another way to frame it, I like that, Daniel, is at level 3, you solve problems one at a time. At level 4, you build a system so you never have that problem again, right? Yeah. So you begin to identify, what are the problems that my business has? I can't find enough baristas. Okay. In level 3, you just say, does anyone know anyone? Like, can I find one more? I just need one more barista to get through today, right? And that's what you have to do with that phase. But in level 4, you have to find a system to never be short of baristas again. You need to be able to figure out, okay, here's exactly the play that we run to make sure that we always have a pipeline of talented, available baristas. What are the other problems that we have? Oh, we don't have enough carts. Well, what's our process for deciding when to purchase another cart, and when do we need to buy it, and do we need to make sure that we have it before this busy season, and how is it going to be ready to go and serviced? What is our process or our system for making sure that equipment doesn't break, or when it does break, that people know how to deal with it, and all of these little whack-a-mole problems that you deal with as a business owner. Eventually, you have to just sit down and deconstruct the problem and make sure that you have a system to solve it every time it comes forever, so that it's not just always you running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
I don't know if I've told this story before, but before I had this pipeline and knew how to solve this issue, like it got kind of hairy at times. There was this one yearly event that was crazy. I needed like 20 to 25 baristas for it, but I really only needed them for that one event, and I didn't know how to generate that. I remember one year, like, it was coming down to the wire. I tapped out all of my word of mouth referrals, and so I literally just printed out these flyers, like, in bold, like whatever it was, 23 an hour plus tips in big letters, baristas needed on these days, XYZ. And I went around, I remember in a single day, I think I went around to 8 to 10 coffee shops, and I was trying to not be creepy. And so I would go up and I would order a cortado, and then I'd be like, hey, I need some event baristas. Like, I'm not trying to like poach your staff or anything, but if anybody happens to be free, like, it's a cool gig, you'll make great money. And some people, I did get a couple people from that, maybe 2 to 3, but some people were very weirded out and confused why I was doing that, which was fair. And then I had like 8 half-drink cortados as well in my car. But yeah, that was, before that pipeline was built, it got down to the wire. It got very stressful. There's probably nothing more stressful in the events business than having committed something, having collected money, and feeling like I don't have the staff to service this yet, and it's coming down to the wire is a real bad feeling. So,
just to close the thought, right? So what we've been talking about is like, how do you excel, and once you're at level 4 and like really maximize your opportunity in one city. The thing that becomes the next question once you've done that is, well, could I do this in another city? Could I expand, do what I'm doing outside of just my one little hometown where I started this thing, and actually build like a scalable business that exists in many cities? That's a question we get a lot. We've talked a lot about it, but maybe you could just give a quick blurb, Justin, on kind of the challenges of multi-city growth and what you need to be thinking about if you're already top dog where you are and you're thinking about your next location.
Yeah, I think, first of all, do you even want to do that? Like I did, because I'm a little bit more of like a volume, do volume coffee catering. I think I talked a little bit on the last episode. I'm not really like a super bespoke, like, just share with us your vision and we'll make it come alive. It's more like, if your vision is coffee catering, then yeah, we're at the right spot. So not everyone wants to do that. Some people want to like branch out and do maybe multiple different catering options within their city. So they do coffee and churro carts and photo booths, or smoothies, whatever, and that's fine too. I don't know. I was really drawn to do that and to launch in another city and to see where I could take it. It was, yeah, it's tough, and it's definitely the lessons that you learned in stage 4 that will serve you well and are critical. And that's where really it was just the one guiding principle for me of like, if every single thing we do, we're doing hundreds to thousands of times per year, right? Then how do we make that better? I never cared about this process before, maybe this one little process of how a barista loads in or what the equipment is. But now, if we're going to be doing it hundreds of times this year, hundreds of times next year, thousands of times in the next 5 years. I'm just going to go through and make sure like this is going to be super robust. This entire process from client communication to equipment durability to maintenance, that's actually a big thing is like, well, and to the ability to do it from scratch at an accelerated rate. Like launching in a new city is weird because, you likely need a warehouse. So immediately you're getting kind of the fixed cost that you were kind of probably allergic to in the beginning. And that's why you started catering, because of the really low overhead costs. But now you start with a fixed cost. You're doing accelerated growth because you want to hit profitability. You also know what's capable in what you're capable of, what the industry is capable of. And so you want to be getting decent event volume, and you're trying to do it in a shorter amount of time. Maybe it took you 7 years to get to stage 4 in your first city, but you want to accomplish that in like 3 or half the time, 3.5 maybe in your new city. And so there's just a lot at play. And we made a lot of mistakes. I had this is really where equipment maintenance and repair stuff really start. Like we had tons of gaps there. I was flying out every month, repairing and replacing equipment. Also, because my training wasn't that good, we had crazy amounts of like equipment damage, and I had no one to repair it or fix it. So I'm flying out. I think I've told the story of like flying out a water pump. I couldn't Amazon Prime it, not available locally. Hopped on like a 6 p.m. flight from Denver to San Francisco to replace a water pump so the cart could go out the next morning. So that this is really where, like, if your staffing and training is not good, if your equipment maintenance and repair is not good, you're going to have a real bad time when you try to launch a second city. But you can also always fly out, every month for the first 6 months to figure that stuff out. And that's ultimately what I did. And it, maybe more than any other thing, launching a second city was the catalyst to improve our systems. I thought they were pretty good, and they were, but not nearly good enough for this. And so that second city, I mean, just talk about just a monster durability test. Like these baristas, it felt like some of them just like, super Smash Brothers on all our equipment, and to figure out the training, the maintenance, repair, and durability just to survive that was definitely a huge learning curve.
So if you're picking your second city, pick one that you can drive to in an hour, not one that you have to buy a plane ticket to.
Yeah, or 3 hours, whatever, half day drive. Yeah, for sure. That would reduce the stress level.
I know another system you were mentioning there, Justin, that is unique to level 5 is how do you keep a pulse with what's going on, right? It's one thing when you're level 4 and you can go into your own warehouse, you can talk to your team members, you can set the culture, you can know what's happening in the business. But I think as you go to level 5 and you're not physically there, having things like the one-on-ones we talked about is a great way to do that. Having these red flag alerts, which you've talked about, which is how do I automatically within my own systems have these points in time that I know I'll get feedback, whether that's an automated feedback request from the customer after every single event that is serviced, whether that's some sort of report that's filled out by team members, different ways to know, hey, I don't have to ask everybody, like the systems are going to work to bring these to light, surface them up so I can address them. And I think those help a lot too.
Yeah, those are huge. That's the event report where we're asking about, did we give you enough information? What was the quality of the parking and loading information? How do you rate your own service? How was the client's vibe? Is any equipment damaged? All of that stuff. Did you train a barista? Tell us what you think about the barista you trained. And there's a bunch of kind of conditional questions we ask on the event report. And actually, I feel like we should almost maybe do a dedicated event, like staff post-event questionnaire. What is it? What questions do we ask? How can we make that most useful? That may be an episode that could be interesting, because I did have some people text me after the last podcast being like, "What? Tell me more about event reports." And so yeah, that's really where that happens. And then we're, of course, like we've talked about before, all that stuff is firing off into our Slack channel, so I can have record of it, keep it all organized, and know what's going on at all times. And yeah, we learned a lot, and everyone since has gotten easier. Like San Francisco, flying out every month for 6 months. I chose a warehouse. I don't know if I chose a warehouse with like a extra room. Like there was a mattress on the floor. I was sleeping on the floor when I would go. And I like chose that warehouse for that reason, because I knew like I'm going to be here a lot because I have a lot to learn. And then, the second warehouse after that, LA, it was like I went 2 to 3 times, like once a quarter for a few quarters. And then after that, now, up to the most recent one, Chicago, I went in, launched it one night in, and I probably won't need to go back ever. Maybe like once a year. I don't know. So a lot of learning, a lot of stuff, just like anything, like you can't have a completely thorough checklist. There is a part of it where you just go in and like figure it out. And hopefully we've been able to provide some guidance, but you definitely just got to jump in and get it done at times.
Yeah. So whether you're a side hustler or you are going to your next city, there are obstacles, challenges to face along the way, and we love talking about it. This is a pretty cool space, the mobile event business, and every day we hear amazing success stories and challenges and try and help people. So thanks for hanging out. If you listen this long, as Zach mentioned, we are going to host something here in Denver, Colorado next year for sure. We're going to make it happen where we can all get together and talk about these sorts of things, learn from one another, hang out, get ideas, and hear from people that are really crushing in the space. So if you want to learn more about that, hit us up in the comments or shoot us a text, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.